Okay, welcome. And let's go to the green light first. I told you to put a green light at your house, and then, of course, the next thing we know, Galen's is moving out upstairs, so I don't know.
It's called the green paint.
But, you know, we'll go into the explanation, and so I'm not going to cover it here. But when we talk about green light, understand something. The light that comes from above, from the universe, is in the red and blue spectrum. Okay? When it impacts the Earth, it impacts the green of the Earth, which is the chlorophyll base. And then out of that, it creates the ATP, which is the energy for living cells. So I wanted you to understand that green light is actually a term that is used to signify what is called photosynthesis. How would you spell that? Okay. Photosynthesis is actually, in other words, if you look in a dictionary, you look green light, you'll see photosynthesis. But I want you thinking, now there is light that comes from the nebulae, of which you saw that nebulae, the single eye in the picture in National Geographic. The light that comes from the nebulae, that is emitted from the nebulae, is emitted in the red and green spectrum. But I just want you to know, because the reason I'm pointing that out to you is somebody come up to you and say, well, that's a lot of baloney. There is no such thing as green light. Well, and life isn't dependent on green light. The light that comes down impacts the green of the Earth, creating the ATP, and so the term green light. So you put up a green light as this Passover signal, as you would to God, that you are aware of the coming light, which is coming from the nebulae, which has been told us by the scientists, which will cause this creation of a new advanced energy which is coming upon the Earth. And I was talking to Anne-Marie Pisano a moment ago, and she was talking about these people that are up in the North Pole and are putting something up there, I don't know what it is, that has to do with the 12. But last week, as we were discussing this together, we looked at the Passover, and this is the critical thing here. The Passover is an extremely critical thing because it's talking about the Passover from one condition to another. Inside of you, you pass over from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain. You pass over from the darkness of your life to a point of enlightenment. And on the earth, you pass over from the winter to the spring. So the Passover is always a time of moving from one lower condition of darkness to a condition of light. Okay? And then we showed the Passover in the Bible, which is consistent with the Passover in your body. And in your body, the basis of Passover is in the Bible, in Revelation 5:1, the movement of the energy through the 7 seals. In the East, it's the movement of the energy through the 7 chakras. But what it is energy which moves up the spine, impacts at the pineal gland, and throws open the right hemisphere. This happens during the meditative process when you separate from the thoughts of the mind, and that's how it occurs. So you separate from the thoughts of the mind, and when you are no longer embattled with the thoughts of your mind, the energy can rise up, which is the solar plexus energy, can rise up and impact the pineal gland, and you pass over from that which is the things that make you sick and the things that have caused so much trouble in the world to a whole new way. Now, we found a very interesting thing of how that's described in the Bible, and if you have a Bible in your hand there and you look at page 56, you'll see it. It's in the book of Exodus, and it's in Exodus chapter 12. And that's on page 56. And in Exodus chapter 12, on page 56, in verse 15, it says, 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. You shall put away leaven out of your house, so you shall have no leaven. Now, when you look in a dictionary, you'll find that leaven is the source of fermentation. Okay? And actually then, when you break down that word and look in the dictionary again, you'll find that fermentation is agitation and unrest. So there you can see that the Bible is saying that in order to achieve Passover of the mind, you must not have any agitation in your mind, any unrest in your mind as you enter into your house, which is yourself, and rise up through the 7. So 7 days you'll have, unleavened bread. You'll have no agitation. You'll have no unrest within you. As Jesus put it, you'll take no thought, see. And then it said in the Bible that you'll take the blood and you'll put it on the doorposts of the house as a signal to the Lord. And the Lord says then, I will pass over you. And the problems that will come upon this particular place will not come upon your house. This is very important to you. Because what you're talking about here is not an angel flying with wings over somebody's head. Well, they say, oh yeah, they got it. I see the green light on Vinny's. We don't have to, drop a bomb there. It isn't talking about that. What it's talking about is you're in a time of tremendous upheaval. And you're in a time of tremendous upheaval because of the changes that are happening in the universe. You're at a time of electromagnetism which is in places it wasn't before. You're at a point where between now and the year 2000, there is going to hit the Earth light from this nebulae, from this supernova, which has never happened before. And what is going to happen with the electromagnetism can make tremendous changes. But what the Bible says is that those of you who are in the meditative state and who have conditioned your mind will not be upset by this, will not be hurt by this. But those who have not could very well be hurt by this. So it's something that, you do this and you line this up with what's in the Bible written thousands of years ago, and you line it up as well with what goes on the earth and what's going on in the world. But a green light. And this I just wanted to go over just for a few moments before we go on. A green light, And I told you, you put a green light at your house. And then the first thing I thought of is, oh my God, here they got enough trouble coming down here. What?
Somebody's parked right in front of the steps. A silver Buick by the paint store.
Silver Buick parked by the steps of the paint store. Has anybody got a silver Buick? Silver Buick. Does anybody in here own a silver Buick? Oh, that's Mistress Mary. Mistress Mary's parked by the stairs. Well, all right. Well, you say. Okay. But why a green light? Okay. And this is what, just for a minute, let's just review this real quickly. All right. First of all, it's not, you're not putting a green light to signal UFOs. I don't know if all of you are aware of that, because I think some of you think, well, Now, you're putting a green light to signal God. You're putting a green light for the same reason as the instructions were to put blood on the doorpost of the house thousands of years ago. There's a cosmic reason that you're putting out a green light. There's also a reason that you can explain to other people, hey, I have a green light because I understand that it is the light that comes down from above that impacts with the green earth that creates energy. But let's see this scientifically. Is anybody in this room that does not have the scientific documentation that we hand out here? Everybody's got it? Everybody receive it? If you don't have it, just raise your hand. John will give it to you. You don't have it? Okay. Which page do you need?
63 and 64.
Okay, well, we might not have those now. We're not going to worry about those now, but what I wanted you to have was 60, I need you to have 69 and 70, okay? I think it's 69, 70, and then I'll give you 71 and 72 today. Okay, but you got to have this stuff because I don't want to stand here and telling you this is the way it is. In the same way that, I was looking at the internet and they started talking about we're moving through the energy of a photon belt and all of this new age stuff, but everywhere I went in checking with NASA and checking with scientific sources, I could not find that there is a scientific belt that exists anywhere. So, the thing is, everything that I say to you has to be documented. Everything that I say to you has to be scientifically documented or this thing isn't going to work. So if you look on page 69 of the material that I gave you last week, you'll find there that there's something called chloroplasts which contain chlorophyll, which is used to convert light into ATP. Now, if you just take your hand and go like that, or move your arm, or move your leg, and realize that you could not do that without ATP. All right? If you understand that you couldn't think, you couldn't live, that no living thing could exist on this earth without ATP. And ATP is made when light comes down from the universe and impacts on the green earth. That's what chloroplast. Now, if you look on page 69 and you look under B, you'll see that ATP is found in all living organisms and is the main source of usable energy for the activities of cells. Now, what's important about this is we've been told by the scientists that this light from the nebula is coming down to the Earth. And then when this light hits the Earth, there's going to be a change. And what I'm telling you is the change that is given to you now is not just coincidental with the discovery of the 8 planets. The change that is going to come upon this Earth is actually what Passover was written for thousands of years ago. The change that is coming down is going to create a new energy. But only those people who are understanding of this, who are not afraid of the nature of life of God. I mean, you followed religions all your life, which are scared to death of the universe, which are scared to death of nature, scared to death of their own minds. Okay, so then if you look on C, energy transformation, okay, which is adenosine tryptophan, which is ATP, and a researcher in D shows that ATP is the immediate source of energy for contraction. In other words, you can't move without ATP. So here's the point. The point is you can go outside and trample on the grass, you can go outside and cut down a tree, and you can consider yourself at the top of the chain. Look, I'm a human being, I've got intelligence, I've got a brain, but it's a very awakening thing to realize that that tree can get along very fine without you, but you couldn't last a minute without the tree. I mean, you're dependent on ATP. You're dependent on this light which interacts with the green of the earth. But none of that is dependent on you at all. Okay? So, also, I found it interesting, if you look in E on page 69, the word signal. And in that word, you'll see alarm, alert, beacon, you'll see green light, you'll see the symbol of authorization. Okay? So I'm giving you a reason to consider why I told you to put a green light on. You're asking me, what does it cost you? A bulb. You know, what does it cost you? A bulb. And then you got this great thing of everybody coming up and you'd say, why do you have a green light at your house? Because they never ask, nobody ever comes around and asks you anything, do they? But now they'll come and say, why do you have a green light at your house? Yes, well, and I know you. I mean, you know, I know it. You're not going to say what I've told you. You're going to say, well, you know, you never know when they're coming, and we're kind of waiting. You know, we got the kids got the lemonade ready in case they're thirsty when they get. Yeah, I know, but that's okay. Do whatever you want. But remember that the light is not to signal a UFO. The light is to signal God. But if God chooses to come in a UFO. Who's to say? Because with the religions you followed all your life, he can't. He's got to come with sandals, a white sheet wrapped around him, a beard and long hair down his back, and a horse. A donkey. Yeah, well, okay, look at page 70. If you look at page 70 of the material that I gave you, you'll see that it says zodiacal light, okay, is the light that hits the earth, and what is zodiacal light called? Green flash. Green flash. And then if you'll see in B, chlorophyll. And it says chlorophyll, which traps and stores the energy of the sun and appears green. That's receiving the energy of the sun, is receiving the energy of God. And let me just show you one thing that I found interesting on page 1004 of the Bible. If you look in Revelation chapter 4, verse 3, 1004, Revelation chapter 4 and verse 3. And it says, and he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow around the throne in sight like unto an emerald, which is bright green. Bonnie, do you have huh? Oh, you have? I mean, if you haven't seen this before, that what Hubble took, the picture of the nebulae that we're talking about, the picture of the single eye of God, the third eye of God. And this was taken from National Geographic. And I don't know if you've seen this before, but if you look at it, you see that the eye is bright green. Okay? And that's an amazing thing. And I think one of the amazing things about this is Dr. Chris Burrows, I think his name is, from the European Space Agency, said this is the most unusual thing we've ever encountered. We have no idea. We've never seen anything in the universe like this before. Okay. And it came right after they discovered that ninth planet, remember? The ninth planet with at Corona Borealis, which was the crown chakra. So all of these things are happening in the universe. So, okay, we know ATP impacts the plants and creates, through the chlorophyll, the energy that all life cells. What about inside of your body? If you look on page 70, you'll see under C that the human hemoglobin contains a HEME group. And in the last sentence, the HEME group is chemically related to chlorophyll, the green pigment of plants. So it's inside of you as well. It's inside of you as well. So here's the point. A new life, a new you, a new world, a new age, a new universe, a new energy. How? By light. And what is light according to the Bible? God is light. And light is on its way to this earth according to the astronomers. And when that light hits, it's going to impact the green earth. And there it's going to create this photosynthesis, and there'll be a new energy. And those of you who are inside of your house who understand this should then put the signal out to God and to whatever beings are coming down to this planet that we're ready to pass over to this promised land of new existence. And it's a wonderful thought. One of the last thing there on E on page 70, it says, single-celled green algae can sense and move towards a source of light. And so all of these things then are scientifically provable. All of these things are documented, scientifically provable. The light comes to Earth, and there is a new energy. There is a new life. So what are you waiting for then? What do the scientists say? This light is coming to the Earth. This light from this nebulae is going to come to the Earth between now and the year 2000. That's not a long time. And as it gets closer, you'll see changes. You'll feel changes. It's not just all of a sudden, bang. It's a gradual change in this sense of energy. Because it's electromagnetism. And electromagnetism is going to impact the brain. But the condition of your brain depends on the condition of your meditation. The condition of the exercise. Practicing the single eye as Jesus spoke of. Allowing the energy to rise up through those resistors, causing yourself to allow the current to submit to the resistance of Om. So that your brain is ready to receive this light. And now you put a green light at your house, just as a second Passover. You know the second coming of Christ, this is the second coming of Passover. And you know there's a Passover because you experienced it. You saw February with the cold and the howling winds, and then you saw April and May and June, and everything burst forth with a new color. So there was a Passover, and you saw it. You can see it every year. And you can experience that same Passover inside of yourself as that energy moves and starts to open the right hemisphere. You become enlightened. You understand things. I mean, we have spent our life as human beings, and we were talking about, what does religion do? What has it done that's been good for anything? But now you come to a new point where you find out religion is in here. It's within you. And it's your turn then to actually move into a harmony with the one universal thing called God, which is not involved in any groups or clans or cults or religions of any kind. So we're waiting for the light, right? And we're putting a green light on the back of the house as our symbol of Passover, that the people in this house are aware, and we're waiting. And we're open, and we're ready to move to a new energy on this earth. Because it's gone as far as it can go with the old. There's no place for it to go anymore because there's no way to teach these people because they're now so set in their ways that they'll kill you to defend their religions and their groups no matter how bizarre it is. So what are we waiting for? We're waiting for light. And we're waiting for the green light to create new energy. Go to page 995. And at page 995, you'll come to the book of 1 John. Okay? In 1 John, you look at 1 John chapter 1, and you look at verse 5. And this then is the message which we have heard of him and declare unto you, that God is light. See who's coming? What's coming? What are you putting a single up for? As I said, if he comes in a UFO, that's fine. But you're talking about the creative energy of the universe. You're talking about the intelligence of the universe. God is light. And it's very important, too, That as you go along and you study with me, you start to realize how do you look? You look at mythology. You buy books on mythology. You got to understand how to read it. It's the same way in the Bible. There is nothing in here that was ever written to be a historical fact. Nothing. And that's the only thing that you and this people in this country have ever looked for to try to prove that this stuff really happened. Pyramids were put up by people before there were Egyptians. And yet all that you'll see people say, I wonder how they got the rocks up there. I mean, who cares how they got the rocks up there? The important thing is, what do the rocks mean? Right? So it's very important to understand that the scriptures were placed here in Bibles and sutras and Vedas and mythology by a very advanced civilization. And they wrote these things on variations on a theme. And most of the variations on a theme that you'll find in the Bible are variations on the theme of the sun in the sky. The light of the world, the giver of all life, is the sun. And inside of you is the solar plexus, the sun. And when the sun moves inside of you, as it appears to move in the universe, it creates the same harmonic. It creates the same thing. I mean, what you do is you take a basic premise. I'm going to write about the sun. There are some very basic things that you have to put in the story. Oh, you have to put in the sun is born of a virgin. You got to get the sun born of a virgin because the sun is born in the 9th month in September out of the constellation Virgo. So it's always born of a virgin. It always sits at the right hand of power because at the spring equinox into the summer solstice, there's celestial right ascension of the sun, and it sits at the right side. And then you have June 21st, which is the longest day. So it's always going to sit at the right side. It's always going to have 12. Been connected with 12 people because of the 12 signs of the zodiac. In some instances, you might have it crucified because on December 21st, the sun goes through a constellation called the Southern Cross. It's the shortest day of the year, so you have that. And that kind of stuff. You know, you have to have some just basic. Then in all of this stuff, you can get a lot of different stories. You can give people names and, you know, the Virgin, let's call her Mary. Peter, Paul, and Mary running around here because you get some Western people involved in this. But all of these things have to have a basic premise that if you want to write about the sun, you have this, and then you can fill in a lot of stuff that's totally meaningless, but it creates a drama. The story of Jesus is the story of the sun. The same light that impacts the green earth and makes ATP so you can move, so you can breathe, so you can think. Your brain cells are ATP. Your movements are ATP. And it all comes from an interaction of light with green. The healing light, the light that gives hope. And so you have the basis of the story of Jesus, the virgin, right? The 9th month, born of a virgin. You got that. Crucified? Okay. Got that. What would have happened if the sun had gone through the constellation Taurus on December 21st, which is the shortest day of the year? Jesus would not have been crucified. He would have been gored to death by a bull. That's the way the story would have had to been written. Because why? It never happened. Oh, what did he say? That's blasphemy. Oh, no. No, it's blasphemy to say that you have a heavenly creator who is incapable of forgiving you from smoking without killing somebody, without torturing somebody. That's blasphemy. This is a story about the sun. The sun in the sky, the sun in you. Jesus is the sun. Krishna is the sun. Attis is the sun. Mithra is the sun. They're all the sun. And he rises out of the tomb. Why? He's in the tomb 3 days and 3 nights because the sun is in the winter solstice, December 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. That's the winter solstice. And what day does he rise out of the tomb? It's the day he's reborn. What day? December 25th. Certainly. Has to be that way because that's the day the sun is born. Every year. The sun has always been born out of the solstice on December 25th. So that's the way it's written. And then he rises to sit at the right hand of the Father because by the trajectory of the earth, the sun appears to rise and then go up to the right, up and sit at the right side. And June 21st, it's called in astronomical terms, celestial right ascension. And he's betrayed by one of his own. As the sun is betrayed and then cast into the darkness of the cross and into the darkness of the pit. The basic truth is you're conveying the story of the Son. And all of the other stuff you add for dramatic purposes. That's the way you write myth. If you go back to the Old Testament, you find the story of who? Joseph. Joseph. Now, a little bit different, a little variation on the theme, but the same story. Joseph had 12 brothers and 1 sister. Well, you say, well, he can't be the son because there are only 12 signs of the zodiac. Well, yes, he can, because Simeon and Levi were twins, Gemini. See? So they count as 1. So there's only 12, so he's got 12. And what happened to him? He was betrayed by one of his brothers, by the one of the 12. And he was thrown into a pit. But he rose out of the pit of the earth to sit at the right hand of Potiphar. And there he had charge of the storehouse of all life, Joseph. Huh? Hey, you say, wow, what about being born of a virgin? After all, Jesus was born of a virgin. Joseph's mama was named Rachel. And Rachel was barren. But her womb was opened so she could give birth to Joseph. Every one of the children of promise in the Bible was born of either a virgin or a barren womb. Why? Because the son is born of Virgo, the virgin. See? So, Joseph is the son, Jesus is the son, and we understand that. Now let me show you something. Show you something interesting. Could you do me a favor? Could you help me put this down here? I don't want to, watch the water bin. Here, turn the water. Let me show you something. You all set? Not yet. Outside. Well, you know what I want to show you first of all? I want to show you where you live. I want to show you where you live before you do that. You want to turn one of these down and the light... oh, that's where you live. Okay. There's a Milky Way. You live on one of the arms that extend out from the center, the Milky Way. Right here. And it's called the Arm of Orion. That's where you live. So, if you think you live in Forked River or New Jersey or wherever, you don't. You live out here somewhere. You're a pimple on the rear end of the Milky Way. So, I mean, don't get too excited about, what you... Okay? Now, let me show you the sun. Okay? And we talk about the green light and all this business. Is this upside down or right side up?
That's right.
Okay. Now, here you have the spectrum of the sun. Okay? And you've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, ultraviolet. Okay. The sun coming down to the earth. And of course, where you have the Jesus as the sun, born of a virgin, the solstice, born on December 21st, rises up, goes into the water with the waterman Aquarius, then selects his disciples through the fish Pisces, and then rises up to be the Lamb of God Aries and sits at the right side. And then you have Joseph. And Joseph is the son. And what is it all about? The Father gives his Son, the light of the world, his only begotten Son, a coat of many colors, which is the spectrum of the sun. And so what are you going to do now? What you're going to do now is you're going to take one of the patches from Joseph's coat and place a green light at your house. See? Sun energy is transmitted to the earth in quanta of energy, and I want you to stay very close to this name because it's going to be very important for you, because I'm probably going to now reveal you the real name of God. Are you ready? When you get up to heaven, wherever that may be, you may knock on the door. Photon will see you now. But I'm going to give you some material to look at. And this will be pages 71 and 72 of the information. Could you turn that? This will be pages 71 and 72. And I wanted just to go over it with you because it's extremely important. Because the light that you're waiting for and the light that comes down from the universe to impact the Earth to cause ATP, to impact the chlorophyll, is called photon. Photon is the energy of light. All right? And we'll look at some of these things. And what we'll look at first when you receive this is on page 71. You'll look at what is called fundamental particles. Now, you see, I don't want to get too technical, but how can you not? If you live on the planet Earth and you're talking about electromagnetism, you're talking about your brain and how it operates, the point is you're not going to get away with going into a church and saying, I believe this, and everything's going to be fine, because you're still not going to have any understanding of what life is about. Make sure that the ladies in the, you got yours? Do we have enough for the ladies in the back? Okay, fine. All right, but if you look at page 71 with me, you look at something called and I'm going to introduce you to things that are in your body that you never knew before, as usual. But if you look at fundamental particles, and there is something, this word you're going to run into for the first time, probably in the history of your life, but it's a very important part of your existence, and it's called gauge bosons, B-O-S-O. How many of you knew that you had gauge bosons? Well, there you do. Wouldn't that be nice if somebody had told you this stuff, for God's sakes, and instead of telling you about a snake, you're talking to two people with no clothes on in the garden, let me tell you. Gauge bosons are particles with no mass that transmit all forces in the universe. Now, the point is they're invisible, aren't they? They have no mass of any kind, yet they transmit all forces in the universe. I want to tell you, too, that if you look at the very top of the page, you'll see that this comes from the Encyclopedia of Science. It does not come from some kind of a New Age magazine or Smoke and Feathers and all this stuff. This is a true thing. Okay? Gauge bosons are particles with no mass that transmit all forces in the universe. Now, the second thing that is interesting about this is when you look at the second paragraph under gauge bosons, what are they called? Messenger particles. Is that interesting? Messenger particles carrying the fundamental forces of nature, and the most common example is, who's the messenger? Photon. Okay? So the messenger that would come down from above to touch you is photon. Okay? Now, the interesting thing is after we get to gauge bosons, we get into what are called second messengers. Second messengers are chemicals produced within a cell in response to an extracellular signal. So in other words, you place yourself in position to receive a signal outside that will cause the second messenger to reveal to you what that signal and what that information is all about. You see? Now, I want you to realize here that you don't have in your hand, I mean, it sounds bizarre, but what you have in your hand is from the Encyclopedia of Science, okay? This you can find in any dictionary, in any encyclopedia, in Grolier's, whatever. You can look up gauge bosons, you can look up second messengers. These things exist. Now, if you go down to the types of if you look under second messengers in the third paragraph, in the second sentence, it says, this amplification factor explains why, for example, a single photon of light hitting a photoreceptor cell in the eye can be sufficient to trigger a nerve impulse and enable us to see in a very dim light. But the very last paragraph on page 71, types of second messengers. The main second messengers used by animal cells, that's you and me, are called cyclic AMP. Do you see that? Cyclic AMP. Okay. Now, the reason that that's important is you turn to page 72 and you look at cyclic AMP. You see, in the second sentence, Well, first sentence, cyclic AMP is used as a second messenger throughout the animal kingdom. It was the first second messenger to be discovered in 1957. It is formed by the action of the enzyme adenylate cyclase on what? ATP. There you go. Okay. So there's a direct impact then. There's a direct impact when the sun comes down, impacts the green of the earth and the hema inside of you, and creates ATP. Now the ATP is ready. The ATP is the green light that you're putting on your house. All right? The green light then represents the new energy which is coming down from the earth. Now we understand that this will trigger a signal, an extracellular, a signal outside of you, that this cyclic AMP will trigger upon the ATP within you. And we don't, as I said, we're in no condition as a scientist to get too deep in this thing. But I think we've seen enough to say there is a connection here. Gauge boson, cyclic AMP, ATP, and all of this business. There is a connection between the green light, the light of photosynthesis, the light that is the new energy. And all I'm trying to give you is a logical explanation of why this is rational and why this is going to happen. Because to say there's a light coming down and it's going to make all of these things happen, and you're going to say, oh yeah, well that's great, hallelujah, let's go all meditate. That's not going to do it. You've got to be able to understand. You've got to be able to deal with people out there that are not going to know what's happening. I mean, if you look at the story in Exodus, which never happened, okay? Understand something. Exodus never happened. And if you want to find out that it never happened, then you go back to the Egyptians of those days and you'll find out that it never happened. I mean, there's no record of that ever happened. But that's not important. This was a cosmic message given to you who had reached the point of Aquarius, because Aquarius is when this all happened. I mean, for God's sakes, what do we say? How many years has there been human beings on the earth? We said it last week. Are you ready? 500,000. Java man. And it took you 499,900 years to figure out how to make a light bulb. But then all of a sudden, after you made the light bulb, bang, you started making everything. Now you got a car driving around on a highway, wherever it is, in Mars. How come? What happened? All of a sudden, there was this tremendous outpouring because the angle of light, the angel of light, shifted into Aquarius and impacted the brain, and you begin to understand this is what's going to happen here in a big way. But you see what the story is in Passover and Exodus is that the people who had the signal on their door were enlightened. They were aware. The people who did not were in the dark. They couldn't deal with it. They didn't understand it. And that's what's about to happen here on this earth. I don't know what else I could do for you. I've given you every planet that was discovered. I've given you the names of the scientists that discovered them. I matched them with the biblical prophecies, planet by planet, star by star. You've got it all. And they followed the movement of the energy through the chakras exactly. You've got all of that information. I gave it to you. I don't know what else I can. And then we talked about the single eye of God. After the explosion, after the planet found in Corona the crown, we said, well, then next would be the single eye of the pineal gland. And on the front page, what more can God do but put his picture on the front page of National Geographic? You won't even look at the thing. Well, I don't know. That could be, yeah, I don't know. Because I've shown this to people where I work. Oh, yeah. And you know what then? I had to give a speech at where I work. You know, about I handle all of the federal and state compliance for a large cable company for New Jersey, Philadelphia, and parts of California. And so when I get up to give this speech, they all, I saw them whisper. And when I stood up and I get my stuff up, they all went, oh. So I said, okay, now that you did that, I'm going to show you something. And I showed them the green, you know. But I mean, people don't know. They don't know. Because they're too busy. They're too busy to understand this stuff. But you know. I mean, I haven't told you anything. There is not one thing that I have told you about this stuff that you do not have scientific documentation for. If I'm telling you about second messengers that are communicating extracellular to the cells inside of you, I just gave you documentation to prove it. Because if I had said that, you'd go home, hey, what's that nut? When you go down to the cellar there, what's that nut talk about? Oh, there he talks about the messengers of light that are going to signal us and trigger things inside of us and make us ready, so we're putting green lights out on our house. Oh, okay, yeah, good. Hey, break. But that's not the way it is. You have documentation that there is a second messenger. And you have documentation that the second messenger is extracellular, but will communicate with the cells and will communicate with the part of you that is related to the light that comes from outside and impacts the green and makes ATP. And that's why you have a green light. See? Go down to, on page 72, the part that says chlorophyll, where I have the marks on each side. As a molecule of chlorophyll absorbs a photon of light, its electrons become excited and move to higher energy levels. That's what you're in store for. Then what does it say? Did I make that up? That's what's written here, isn't it? As a molecule of chlorophyll absorbs a photon of light. What do you have a molecule of chlorophyll in you? Certainly you do. You have heme, which is hemoglobin, which is the same as the green pigment of plant. And then it says its electrons become excited and move to higher energy levels. You're already reaching parts of that. I am getting excited and reaching higher energy levels because of that. See? So what we've taken here is we've taken science, we've taken the Bible, we have a photon which produces extracellular. And you look at this chlorophyll and this excited. So we obviously are not only on the verge of a new cosmic Passover, but a new Genesis. We're awaiting the light, the green light as we have understood it. And what you're awaiting is a new cosmic photosynthesis. A new cosmic photosynthesis that will stop all of this insanity that is part of the thinking process. The thinking process of human beings has been corrupted by religion. Horrible things have happened to people in the name of God, and that is blasphemy. So we're waiting for the light to manifest itself. We understand the Passover, and give me, say, 5 minutes and then we're gone. So let us look then on the very first page of the Bible, because now it's time, just as we have the Passover and the second coming through the Pegasus, it's time now also to look at what is about to come down here. And it says in Genesis chapter 1 on the very first page, verse 3, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. There's an intelligence making all of this happen. There's a magnificent intelligence that you can call God making this happen. And remember, what did I show you a moment ago? This then is the message which we have heard in 1 John 5, and declare unto you that God is light. So now we not only know that this light is manifesting in the physical universe, but more importantly, this is God manifesting in the physical universe. Because God is photon. Let me tell you something about photon, which I'll get into some other time. But I'll tell you something about, do you know that a photon is an invisible mass that travels beyond the speed of light and creates everything that is created? And do you know photon is an intelligence that reasons, and a photon, when it's coming in this direction and it has to get over there, it will make a right turn and follow the shortest route wherever it has to go. Photons are intelligent. Photons are creative. Photons are invisible. Photons are light. And it says God is light. When we moved into Matthew 6:22, Jesus says the light of the body is the eye. Therefore, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. Remember that? If you practice the single eye. And you can come down here on a Tuesday night or Thursday night, and 90% of these seats are empty. Because why? It's inconvenient. I understand that. But I mean, I wouldn't dare. I mean, this is time to be part of this. I mean, it just may be that this nut standing up here is right. Then what are you going to do? It just may be that what the scientists and the astronomers are telling us is right. Because I'll tell you something right now, when they're finding this little rock with a semblance of some kind of microorganism on it, that's just to prepare you for when contact is made. And there will be contact made with people who don't live here, but live in a different place before the year 2000. And that's not that far away. And people are being prepared for that right now. Preparation is undergoing. Right now, people are being prepared for that. And so Jesus says, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. You practice the single eye, you practice meditation, and the pineal gland of your body, it opens up in the same way that the pineal gland of the universe is seen. That pineal gland that we saw in this thing didn't just happen. This didn't just happen. But you know what it is? We have evolved to a point where we can see it. It's always been there. It's always been there. This exploded millions of years ago. The single eye of God has always been looking down on this earth. Okay, Charles? But you can see it now. Look, trigonometry is always at the college level. Geometry is always at the college level. But you couldn't see that when you were in kindergarten, could you? But when you evolved to a point where you could understand, then you could see it. The human race on the planet Earth has evolved to a point because we've reached Aquarius where now we can see the eye of God that has been looking down on this planet. And we can understand these things, and we can understand about the light coming down, and we're told these things. So now we can prepare for it. You should be able now to place what's written in here together with what's told to you by the scientists and say, geez, that makes sense. But most people can't do it because they'll offend the cult if they do. And they can't afford to offend the cult. But you don't belong to a cult because there's no members here. And the one reason I never said we're never going to have members in this thing is because people can say it's a cult. So any of you can believe whatever you want, can disagree, can come, not come, whatever you want to do. You're free, absolutely free. See? Because now you know that here within inside of yourself is that which is the kingdom. Here within inside of yourself is the powerhouse, the ATPs, the cyclic AMPs, the Gauge boson, all of this stuff to make contact with the universal light that is coming down. And here you see where the scientists have said the light is coming upon the earth from supernova. And it's going to hit there. What are you going to do about it if you don't understand it? What the heck are you going to do? And I'm standing up here trying to tell. And I do know. And I understand. And this stuff is given to me. And it's sometimes given to me in such a way that myself, I say, what? I'm nuts. What am I telling people? Put a green light now. You know, I sound like Marshall Applewhite, phase 2. Here we go. What is this? But then I look and I search because I want to be able to give you documentation, and I start to find it and I start to understand, and these things are true, these things are real. This is really going to happen. There's no doubt about this is going to happen. And you're worried about going to work, and you're worried about, and we all have to do that. We have to do these things. How irrelevant does that become? Wonder if this thing lands in your backyard and the ramp comes down, the green lights, and the guy comes down. He says, hey, you got the green light in your house. You ready to go? What are you going to do? Well, I would, but I got a doctor's appointment. I mean, I can't. What's this? You know? You know, I got to make my payment up there. So you have to understand, it's a whole new ball game. It's all off. It's all over. All of the things that were important to you, forget about them. Because they failed. They hurt you. They made you sick. You've all had people in your family who have gone through terrible deaths and died of terrible diseases in one way or another. Some of you had people in your family who have been killed in wars. We've seen little children. I can always see that Vietnam and that little child with no clothes on running down the path on fire and napalm. Who did that? Who did that? Who did it? Your country. God bless America did that. And we found a way to excuse it and say, well, we had to. No, you don't have to do that. Because it's lunacy on both sides. It's this type of mentality that now the light is coming down upon the earth to give a new energy to stop that. And I guess it was okay when you didn't know any better, but you do know better now. It's okay that you maybe wet your pants when you were in kindergarten. That's okay, but it's not okay now. Because you know. At least it shouldn't be okay now. I mean, yeah. Okay? So I've given you some new stuff. I've given you some new things to think about. I've given you as much as I can give you over the last few weeks and months to show you what is happening in the sky is predicted in the Bible. I said to you, hey, watch out, because it says in the Bible, behold, heavens open and I saw a white horse, and that's the second coming of Christ consciousness. And on October 20th, 1995, the scientists discovered a duplicate, a twin of our sun in another solar system with a planet orbiting around it in Pegasus. It's never happened before. That should have really excited you. And then every planet they found after that were right in sync with what was written in the Bible, from the Virgin up through the Pineal Leo, up through cosmic consciousness to the single eye. And it all was discovered. And it was discovered. And I gave you, and you have every planet, you have the time they were, and you have the names. You have the names of the scientists who discovered them. And then you have a picture of God's single eye. And, see, if God comes, it comes out of a spaceship, he's going to say, what's the matter with you people? He says, you got a Bible. You carry this under your arm. And it says the single eye. And then I showed you a picture of it on the front page of National Geographic. You never even looked at it. You were too busy. See? And now, about the green light, I've given you the documentation of how it works. You understand that the light impacts the green and creates ATP. And then you understand when the ATP is triggered by an extracellular gauge boson, it calls forth a second messenger that will make it respond. This is what is going to happen to you. You're going to respond. Don't stand outside of this thing anymore. Don't think about, well, I wonder if this is, my God. Look at it, and if you got this, go to the library, check it out. If you go to the library, check it out, get on the internet, do whatever you want to do. I didn't give you anything to have faith in. I tried to